And I think what we do as Shirai is kind of like, I don't really kind of push like, oh, we're Filipino, eat our food. And I think you just it just comes naturally. Like what we do is just, at the end of the day, just delicious food.
This is The Crackling. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Australia has one of the most colourful culinary landscapes on the planet. Our fascination with the many cuisines of Asia is no surprise given our proximity. But Filipino food is one that has taken longer to take hold than others. There is, however, a throng of young, enthusiastic professionals led by Chef Ross Magnay, who are exploring the bounty of the 7,000 plus islands of the Philippines. Ross, Filipino food has really come to the fore lately. How does it feel to be part of that?
So in the last 5 years, I think when I was head chef at Rice Paper, we started to do a bit of Filipino food. Obviously, the food was Southeast Asian, and then I put some Filipino food influences at the restaurant. I think people loved it because it was something new and something fresh and something people haven't seen before. And obviously through Melbourne Food and Wine Festival, we've done several events and had some chefs over from the Philippines to come collaborate and stuff. And I think there's a lot of Filipinos in Melbourne, and I think they really enjoyed that. And I think it was amazing to be part of it, to be honest.
Tell us a little bit about Filipino food. It's a pretty amazing place, over 7,000 islands, and the food is so different to many of its neighbours. Tell us, from your perspective, what Filipino food is.
I think, well, obviously the Philippines is the same as like Thailand. Depends on the region you go to. I think the food is very different. My family is from the south, so there's a lot of like curries, like thick, spicy, funky food because it's close to Malaysia, right in the south. So it's very like lemongrass, coconut, chili based. And yet again, in the Philippines, we have been colonized by the Spanish and the Japanese. So obviously there's like a lot of Spanish influences in the food. There's a bit of Japanese influence in the food and the Malay influence in the food as well. And I think, it depends on which area you're from.
Well, take us back to when you were a kid. Can you tell us about any sort of feast or the food that you enjoyed with your family when you were young?
Yeah, totally. So I think like both my parents are really good cooks, right? My mom's side is Spanish, like my grandma's Spanish. So growing up, I've eaten like a lot of like Spanish kind of food, like callos, lengua, and tongue and stuff like that. But with my dad's side, is more like the traditional Filipino food, like pinakbet, which is very Ilocano, pretty traditional. It's very kind of like country style kind of cooking. And every like celebration with us is always about food, right? From like birthdays, baptisms, and everything. I think it's interesting because like in the Philippines, obviously, like the families are not rich and stuff, but even if families are poor, they kind of invite you to their homes, and it's all about food and it's all about welcoming people. And I think it's very hospitable,
The pork and pig is very important to food in the Philippines. Do you have any stories of the feasts that you had when you were young where the pig was central to that?
Oh, totally. Every birthday or every celebration, every wedding, I'd be like, "Where's the lechon?" It's what I think about. It's like it's funny because like if there's a celebration, I'll be like, I want to come just for the lechon sometimes, and I'm like, sad to say, but I'm like, yeah, this is my main focus, and I think kind of like. It's a centerpiece, you know what I mean? So like whole pork, roasted in a spit, stuffed with like lemongrass, chili, garlic, and all the best things in the world, stuffed in there. And yeah, it's just a highlight. And then I think lechon is a very Spanish thing, right? And I think it's one of those influences that Spain, it's a Spanish influence. So I think it's kind of like part of a massive celebration. And I remember like as a kid, like, you always go for the skin, but I think the best part of the pork is the ribs because all the flavors in it. Yeah.
Well, what makes a great lechon? Can you take us through the process and how to get that incredible glassy sort of crackling and skin?
Oh, yeah, totally. Well, 'cause there's two ways you can do it. You can do it like whole pig, right? And I think the size matters. It has to be kind of like suckling kind of size, like maybe 15, 20 kilos. so that it's not too fatty. Um, a lot of people that roast the pig, like we call them lechoneros, which the people who roast the pork. There's different techniques. Sometimes they brine the pork, or they kind of brush the pork with soy sauce and Coca-Cola. Some people brush it with milk as well, so you kind of get like that glassy kind of texture, right? Um, Traditionally, you put it in a big spit, and then you use coal, and you kind of like slow roast it for a couple hours, and you keep turning and turning and turning, and you get that, you achieve that crispy skin. And traditionally, the best lechon is in Cebu because I think the stuffing is what it's all about. So like they stuff it with like lemongrass, chili, garlic, black pepper, sort of black bean. They make a paste and they kind of rub it in the belly, and they cook it for several hours over the coal. The best thing to do is cook it over coal because the flavor is different. And they brush the skin with some, I'm pretty sure. Some people have different techniques. Some people brush it with like soy and vinegar to get that red, like crispy kind of skin. Yeah.
Food was really at the heart of your family growing up. Who were the real influences on you that made you decide that a career in food might be an option?
Sounds cliche, but I think my grandma on my mom's side, Carol, had a massive influence in my career because she used to own a restaurant when my mom was young. And my mom used to talk about how good it was and then how famous it was in the city. Obviously, I didn't get to see it because I think when I was born, it wasn't there anymore. It was this place in Cagayan de Oro City, which is in the southern part of the Philippines. It's called Carol's. So her name's Carol. Yeah, the place is called Carol's. Yeah, so it's very traditional kind of Filipino food, right? And I think, with that as well, like obviously played an influence because growing up eating really good food, and then even my dad's side, as I've said, can cook really well. So food has always been kind of part of growing up, But I didn't think about becoming a chef when I was young until like I was like 19, 20. So.
Well, tell us about that time. Like when did you make that call that maybe that's the direction you'd go in?
Yeah, I think when I was in year 12, I was like kind of wasn't sure what I'm doing actually. And I'm like, maybe I should do that. And I've always wanted to be a journalist actually. Because I smashed English in school. I'm like, maybe I should be a journalist, There's a lot of like opportunity with the media and stuff. And then all of a sudden I was like, chef and cooking, I think, like, again, my grandma influenced me to like, maybe let's do cooking school. So I applied to William Anglis. I didn't do an apprenticeship. I did like a commercial cookery course. I finished like a diploma, a little degree. But while I was at school, what I did was work at different places, just to learn stuff for free. Stage there, one day there. Yeah, so that's why I kind of like, have a little network of people that I know because of that.
What were the first sort of real important venues and mentors for you as you started to build your career?
The first job I had was actually this place. I can't even remember what it's called, like massive function space. We stood like 1,000 people or not, and I was in the dishes with no machine, right? That was exhausting. It's like till this day one of the hardest like jobs ever because it's like 1,000 people functions and like it was only 2 kitchenettes and there was no machine. I was like, I kind of hated it at the start. But then I applied, because I was at school then and I was doing that and I was like, kind of like, what am I doing, But then those periods in your life kind of like mold you to be who you are now, right? Because, it's hard. And like, I think as a chef, I think you need to kind of like work every section, kind of know, like how it is and you learn from it, So I reckon I advise any chef should start as a kitchenette. But then I got a job at this place called Society back in the day, which was this Italian restaurant in the city. It's one of the really good ones at the time. This is like 10 years ago now. And this guy, Giuseppe Uva, took me in. And it was actually my real kind of like experience in the kitchen, the intensity, the hours, and all that stuff. And I kind of, till this day, like, he's one of those chefs that are kind of not really well known, but to me, he's like super special. And while working there, I met a couple of chefs. This guy named Shahaf, which was like, till this day, again, like, no one really kind of knows him. But then for me, like one of the best cooks, right? And one of the best pastry chefs I've met in my life. I think society had that team of people that kind of like look up to until this day, because in that kitchen it was kind of like everyone could cook, everyone was organized, and everyone was like super amazing at their jobs actually.
You spent some time with Darren Purchase, Bertrand Purchase in South Yarra. Well, do you have any stories of what it was like working with him?
Oh, amazing. He was, because when I was working there, I was still at school as well. And at the time, I think Darren was also just kind of like starting out BNP. He wasn't on MasterChef yet, nothing like that. So it's kind of like, there were days it's just me and him. And the stuff that I learned from the guy have been, to this day, one of the most important things I've learned. Like doing pastry, being organized, just like the art of pastry was kind of, I was really passionate about it when I was like starting out. So I was doing a lot of pastry, like working like everywhere, just like for free again, as I said, like to do pastry and stuff. And then Darren started his dessert nights at the time. And I was like, I fell in love with pastry and how Darren was. And he was obviously very, not strict, but kind of like intense, and very, very creative. And I learned a lot from him. Yeah, Darren and Kath as well. Kath was in the business side of things, and she was unbelievable.
You've done a lot of traveling and a lot of had a lot of gigs, sort of all over the planet. Take us on a journey. What's some of the experiences that you've had, and how have they influenced you?
Oh, amazing! I think as a chef, the best thing you could ever do is travel, and I think it's one of those jobs that you can travel and then kind of get a job, right? With me and traveling, I've been super blessed that I've met a lot of people like overseas who've invited me to go cook and do like a gig. Let me think. I've been invited to cook in Singapore. I cooked at Butcher Boys. It's the same guys at Cure. Andy Walsh is the chef. I cooked Miss Smith, which is like part of the Ben Ends crew, for their birthday party. So that was fun as well. In Bali, I cooked at Coup d'etat because Ben and Steve, who used to be the chefs at Coup d'etat, who now own like Mason and Shelter in Bali. We've done events there. Just all over the place. I've done like Malaysia, KL, Paris. I've done events in Paris and stuff, which have been amazing, because you go into those kitchens and kind of like, it's either you meet these amazing chefs, right, and then you kind of do your food, and it's like, it's amazing, and then you meet these amazing people and share stories, and it's kind of like hang out with these people, and it's been amazing. Work-wise, traveling-wise, I worked in Thailand, in Phuket. There's a restaurant in Spain called Azurmendi, which is like a 3-Michelin star place, and they've opened up like a sister restaurant in Thailand in like this fancy villa. So I worked there for a bit. And the same kind of food, same kind of ethos, kind of like from garden to plate, kind of like Spanish food. And then I went to Brazil, Sao Paulo as well. I started at Dom, Alex Atala's place, which was like unbelievable, right? And the stuff they do there is crazy. It's insane. So I've been like pretty lucky to travel and stuff for food.
Well, not many people get to work with Alex Atala. Take us into the kitchen at Dom. Like, what did you do there, and what was it like compared to other kitchens you've been in?
No, it's crazy because like they had like, Dom. So Dom is next to Dal Vagito, which is their other restaurant. Dom's got maybe in service 20 chefs, right? And they prep at Dal Vagito, which is like their other restaurant and prep. I think I was lucky because I think when people stage at Dom, normally they go to the prep kitchen and then just stay there the whole time. But I couldn't speak proper Portuguese, so they put me in the main kitchen where everyone spoke English. I was doing service, So I was like doing a bit of fish, doing a bit of galmanje, lada, and I think helping out Giovanni, the chef, like plating up like the ants dish with pineapple and stuff like that. So it was awesome because like, and at the time as well, it was Alex was like, obviously like, Alex is like this celebrity rock star in Brazil, right? But then at the time, he was kind of like back in the kitchen because he was decided kind of like, oh no, I kind of want to go back in the kitchen, easing again. So when I was there, he was there every night, which is amazing.
When you came back to Australia, you kind of left the kitchen for a bit and focused on the front of house. Tell us why that is and what you got out of it.
Yeah, I think I can't remember specifically like when that was, but yeah, I was just burnt out. I was burnt out. I remember I was burnt out. What happened? Yeah, I can't even I don't remember details, but I know like I left because I was super burnt out. I was super stressed because when like that first maybe 5 years of cooking, that was like it was intense, like 80, 90 hours, 100 hours stress. It was intense. And I was like, I'm over it. And I was like, I'm going to go overseas, de-stress, visit family. And then when I came back here, I worked, I worked front of house for a bit with a friend of mine. He used to own a Thai restaurant. And I was like, dude, can I just like work with you? He's like, yeah, you can be on the floor. And it was like the best thing ever. I think I did it for 6 months, wake up a bit later, chill out, have coffee, and just go to work, and then not stress too much because it was kind of like a super casual like Thai restaurant. I was like, loved it. And I loved it again, and I eased my way back into hospitality again and kind of like, I actually love doing this,
Did it give you a different perspective dealing with customers as opposed to being in the kitchen?
100%. Because, when you're a young cook, you always have this mindset kind of like, kitchen versus front of house, like we're in the kitchen, blah, blah, blah. And obviously when you kind of work on the other side, you kind of understand, oh, wait, like this, like this side is as important as the other side. And you kind of realize that you need to work as a team to be able to kind of, run the restaurant smoothly. And I think like even like learning like basics, like polishing cutlery, like setting tables is super important.
Rice Paper was an opportunity for you to sort of put your voice on a plate as head chef. Tell us how that came about and the experience that gave you.
Yeah, so I came back from Thailand working, and I came back to Melbourne, and then I organized a stage at Attica, I think, because Peter Gunn was a good mate of mine, used to be the sous, and I was like, let me, I want to stage, see what you guys are doing. So I staged at Attica. Then after I staged, I think a friend rang me who used to be my sous chef at Society, the first chef that I had. He rang me and he said, look, because the Rice Paper kind of just started, but then they were about to open the Fitzroy store. So he's like, we get a position available and there's a sous chef spot. And I was like, all right, I'll come in and trial. And honestly, when I looked at it, I'm like, I'm not really sure about this place, because at that time I was kind of like focused on like fine dining places because I wanted to learn more. And I was like, I'm not sure if I want to work in a place like that, like simple, funky, kind of like fun. I was like, we'll see. So I came in, did a trial. Chef liked me. Shane, who's my business partner now, was the boss and ex-owner. And then he's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then we kind of got along. I kind of enjoyed it. And that's it. And then I was meant to go to Fitzroy to be the sous chef, but I ended up being the head chef. So I think I was like 23, 24. Pretty young, actually, to be head chef. So pretty awesome.
What was that role like for you and the pressures of being head chef?
Oh, I didn't know what I was doing. even now, I don't know what I'm doing. But no, it's kind of like... But it's kind of one of those things that you kind of like, oh, hold on, like you don't realize at the time, but then like there's all the responsibility that goes with it, right? It's not just about the food and stuff. It's all like if you're head chef, you're running the whole restaurant. You know what I mean? So you kind of have to like you learn that slowly. And I think one of the best things I've learned in that period is being patient and controlling your temper, because back then I was kind of like more intense and kind of like, can't control my temper properly. So I was like kind of, those are like the most important things I think I've learned like at that time starting out. You can be super creative, but then at the same time you need to be able to run people and delegate and be a leader. And I think that's the hardest thing.
Take us into the kitchen of Rice Paper, with pork being so significant with Filipino food. And I know that Rice Paper explored Southeast Asia. But did you have any pork dishes on the menu that sort of spoke of what you were doing then?
So when I started, they were doing this pork dish basically. So you cook it in a master stock, like heaps of spices, like old school Chinese spice. So it's twice cooked, and then cool it down, and during service, you kind of deep fry it until it's just like crispy. And then we used to do this sauce with chili caramel, so like heaps of funky spice paste, some shrimp paste, and you put some palm sugar in it, and you make this like really thick caramel, and you put some lime and chili. So it's very like sweet, acidic, funky, and it's like you put that on the pork and then a bit of salad on top. Amazing. And then when we opened Sister, Rice Paper Sister, we were doing this pork dish like kind of adobo, but kind of like a modern version. So adobo is like it's like the most popular Filipino dish, right? So it's like pork with chicken cooked in like soy, vinegar, and garlic and black pepper, and you reduce that. So it's like a little stew. And our version of it was kind of like roasted pressed pork belly with a bit of adobo sauce, and put some scallops on top and some Yarra Valley caviar and some crackling. So it was interesting because like pork and scallop, and and pork and seafood always works, right? But yeah, that was a banger, in my opinion. Anyway.
You mentioned that was a chance for you to start integrating Filipino food onto the menu, and it led to now the sort of full representation of your interpretation of Filipino food. Take us on that journey of that sort of experimentation and the acceptance of the cuisine here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think like I've got a different mindset of it because like when I do dishes like that, obviously, firstly, like when I was chef at Rice Paper, I had like full freedom for creativity and stuff. So as long as we kind of like, stay in that Southeast Asian kind of thing. So I pretty much did whatever I want, which was amazing. And yeah, I just like did bits of pieces of the Filipino food that I've grown up eating. And I'm not an expert in it, like I've only maybe scratched the surface, maybe 15% of what it is, right? I only know the flavors that what my parents have kind of like cooked for me when I was young. And I think that's important for me because of that, I'm very confident in putting that on a plate because I know it's delicious because I'm like, I've been eating it since I was young. And I kind of don't, but I kind of don't do this, like the stuff that I've done because to please people, right? And I was like, I just do this because I know it's delicious and hopefully it will work. And then it worked. So obviously with the Rice Paper thing, as I said, like there were a lot of opportunities, and pre-COVID, the Filipino thing was kind of hot. We were doing the Melbourne Food and Wine thing. We had people kind of like talking about the Filipino thing. And then COVID kind of hit. So it was like, all right. And then I left Rice Paper.
Well, take us to the creation of Soray and tell us about what you're doing there.
Yeah. So when I left Rice Paper, it was just COVID just hit, and my plan was actually to go to Paris to work in a wine bar because it's always been a dream of mine.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was kind of like organized it then, and then my whole plan fell through, and I was lost, and I was broken. I was like, shit, what am I going to do? So obviously I stayed here for a bit, and a couple of months later, this lady, Bojana from Bulgaria, kind of messaged me because she had a mutual friend. She goes, you want to come to Bulgaria? I'm doing this like pop-up restaurant in the Seaside Hotel in Bulgaria. And I'm like, sure. And anyway, it took us like 6 months to like organize this thing because of paperwork, blah, 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 blah. And eventually I got to Bulgaria and had the best summer of my life. And I was cooking on the seaside on the beach in Eastern Europe. Yeah, no one does that, right? And she's like this huge celebrity chef in Bulgaria as well. So there was a bit of hype, me coming over. So it's crazy. It was like a proper roller coaster. But then after the beach pop up, I went back to Sofia with her and we did some private events, some super like bougie like private dinners. Oh man, it's stuff that it's so much fun. Can't say on a podcast, but but then when I was there, Shane, who's my ex-boss at Rice Paper, one of my best mates and business partner at Soray, he messaged me, he goes, hey, I know you're having fun, blah, 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 get it out of your system, but I think I'll find this space. And I'm like, man, I'm not sure, man. I want to stay in Europe, It's amazing here. I want to stay for a couple of years. And he was persistent, he kept telling me blah, blah, blah. And I've got this other guy, Ben, who was my other best mate, Shane said, that you come work front of us. I'm like, I'm not really sure. Anyway, at the end of it, he persuaded me, and then I'm back, and then I got back in December.
Well, you've made quite an impact since then, and you've got a great connection with producers and farmers. Tell us about the connection and with Western Plains pig that you have.
Yeah, I think when I was at Sister, I just kind of like, it's kind of like those moments, like obviously when you're a chef, you're being creative, you cook some nice food, and obviously you kind of like try to concentrate on getting like really good produce for the restaurant, the best produce, blah, blah. And I think I don't know if I Googled them or just, I don't know I don't know who approached who first, but then yeah, obviously Western Plains came up. I'm like, ooh, awesome. And then I think like try the sample, and obviously the pork's unbelievable. Western Plains, Mount Mercer, Judy, who's the farmer, unbelievable. Like she's like the most loveliest and most generous and beautiful lady ever. And then yeah, we started this relationship, and I think those relationships are important for me, not just the product, but who they are as well. Do you know what I mean? Like you have to be cool and you have to be kind of like generous for me. That's important for me, because I don't want to deal with someone who's like rude. But yeah, and I think that relationship started with that, and then now we use the pork on the menu.
You've got lechon on the menu. Tell us a bit about that. You mentioned, in the Philippines, the best comes from Cebu, but what are you doing here, and how does it work in a restaurant setting like yours? Yeah,
totally. So you can do lechon, like a rolled pork belly as well, like a porchetta. But our version is basically just the belly. But the same spices that Cebu lechon has, we kind of do it on ours as well. So we kind of rub the Western Plains pork, which we use, with some spices in the belly, and we kind of smoke it in the wood fire. Try to cook it in the wood fire, because sometimes we get super busy, because we get like 40, we go to like 20 bellies a day, for example, and we can't cook we can't cook everything in the wood fire, because it's, you know what I mean. You can't. It's just not practical. It's a good idea. It's a great idea, because the thing is, like, some restaurants can do it because they only do like 10 portions. You're doing tasting menu, but ours is not achievable because we're going through so much. So what we do sometimes is kind of like semi-cook it in the oven with the spices, and then hang it, smoke it, and kind of continue cooking. So it's got like the beautiful smoky wood fire flavor with the crispy skin. So the idea is like we roast it like that with the heaps of spices. And then we serve it with a palapa, which is like a Filipino sambal. So we take pineapple and we kind of like smoke and slow roast it in the wood fire as well, get that smoky flavor. So it's got like chili, lemongrass, herbs, shallots, and you make that little dressing with coconut vinegar and soy. So that's kind of like the salad that sambal goes on top of the pork, which is very, like palapa is very like southern Philippines kind of influence, right? Where my family's from is from the south. And then we serve it with this sauce made from the bones of the pork. So some of the bones of the pork and some other stuff, we mix it with like darker chili. It's kind of like a mixed kind of sauce, right? We reduce it, make it jus, and then we kind of put Don Papa rum, which is like a Filipino rum. So it's kind of like sweet, sour, salty, kind of jus, smoky. Then yeah, super simple. Everything in Sarai is super simple. So
your grandmother Carol was a restaurateur. Have you had a chance to see any recipes from her? Have they been passed down? Has there been any interpretations of dishes that she had in her restaurant?
Totally. Sarai, not yet. I'm about to do this lengua dish that she used to do. That's unbelievable. It's basically beef tongue, slow cooked, sliced. And you serve it with like this like creamy mushroom sauce, I think I'm doing it at the restaurant. Basically kind of similar. Take the tongue, smoke it, slice it, make a really rich sauce with maybe pine mushrooms. Smoke that, do that, and then put it on like some toast. Super simple. I think it's going to be beautiful.
With such a food-loving family, what do your family think about what you're creating there in Melbourne?
Oh, they loved it, man. Like every time I have something on, like an article or something, I always send it to my grandma. I link her. She's into Facebook, man. She's 70 something, but she's Facebook savvy. So everything that I put, that's why I watch what I post on Facebook because she's watching, So I'm always like, I'm partying sometimes and I'm like, shit, I posted that and maybe delete that. you know. And yeah, I just like it's articles. I send her some articles, and I think she's very proud of me. Like, you know, your grandma tells you that they're proud of you. I think it's amazing.
Well, you're creating something pretty special there and giving Australians a real glimpse of Filipino food and culture. What do you love about what you do?
I think, obviously, opening a restaurant, running a restaurant and everything is very intense, right? There's a lot of stress. You know, people really don't show that side of it. You know, it's like, it's glamorous. You're opening a restaurant. Oh, it's amazing. Congratulations, you know. So sometimes when people say congratulations to us, I'm like, I just say thanks. But, you know, like, there's always that dark side of it. It's intense. It's like you're doing like 80, 90-hour weeks. There's a lot of stress, anxiety, you know, that goes through it. But I think with the restaurant, what inspired me kind of thing is kind of like, you know, the people that I work with, the producers and the customers that come to support us have been amazing. Not just friends, but, you know, the media, the Filipino community have been amazing as well. There's so many Filipinos coming into the restaurant. And the funny thing about it, it's either they kind of like love it or they kind of like, oh, it's not traditional, but that's like one out of like maybe 100 kind of like, it's not the same as how my grandma makes it, right? But the most of the people come in and they love it. Even like, I'd be surprised, even their grandmas and their grandpas, I'd be like, it's a bit like, you know, but then they enjoy it. They have a great time. So yeah, you know, it's the opposite. But those people that you think that would enjoy it, don't enjoy it. I'm like, really? I'm like, which is funny, right? And I think what we do as well at Serai is kind of like, when I do the dishes, because most the dishes, Shane and I collaborate together because he's kind of the creative director. So we got bounce back with ideas and stuff. And he's amazing and he's super creative. Like he's never really tried traditional Filipino food, which is kind of weird and funny. But yeah, and his knowledge with food and like his creativity is amazing. And I think what we do at Serai is kind of like, I don't really kind of push like, oh, we're Filipino, eat our food. And I think it just it just comes naturally. Like what we do is just, at the end of the day, this delicious food, you know?
Well, it's amazing what you're building there, Ross, and it's an honour to have you on The Crackling today to hear your story. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up soon.
Amazing, man. Thanks for having me.
This is The Crackling, a Deep in the Weeds production in partnership with Porkstars. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we catch up with some of Australia's best chefs and pork producers to discover what makes Australian pork so special.